Hello and welcome to the vuplayer Q&A weekly webinar call, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a minute, but before we do, if you can just confirm that audio connections and video streaming of my screen, which should say vuplayer Q&A on it, are fine, and then we can get started. Thank you. Alrighty, sounds like we're good for liftoff. My name is Peter. This is the vuplayer Q&A weekly webinar call. Thank you everybody for joining. So we're holding these weekly calls in order to, as the name says, answer any questions that you as users may have, also to provide any training on advanced features, showcase new stuff that we've been working on, and ultimately collect any feedback that you might have on how we can keep improving vuplayer. The format is pretty straightforward, so at any time that you have a question or a suggestion or a thought or a concern, just feel free to drop it in the chat box. If you came prepared with some, it will be a good time to drop them in the chat box now, because we're going to start answering them in the order that they come in. So anything that you're interested about vuplayer, just drop it in the chat box and we'll answer them. The webinar replays are available both on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/vuplayer, as well as on our Facebook group. If you're unable to attend, you can catch the replays there, or additionally, you can also post questions that you would like to have answered in the following webinar on those groups, channels, or just by contacting us at support at vuplayer.com or via chat or any way that you like. All right, so I see some new faces. Welcome, Ronaldo. Welcome, Beverly, Kyle, Lewis, Dave. Hello, everyone. Couple of things that I want to get off the plate before we get started. So first thing that I want to mention is, well, first thing I want to apologize for is that I didn't prepare the markers rework demo as I promised. So boo, I know, big letdown. So really sorry about that. We've kind of been in the middle of something that I think is going to start making sense next week. Can't necessarily talk about it too much, but I think it's one of the biggest changes that we're doing at vuplayer, and it's not so much about the product itself, but more about sort of the strategy and alignment with the value that we're providing to the customers. So I think you'll appreciate and understand why there's been a delay, but I think that change, which we'll talk about next week, and I think it's going to be pretty apparent to everybody next week about what's going on, is going to start making a lot of sense. So again, apologies for the lack of that demo, but you'll see, I think you're going to get a lot more value from vuplayer moving forward starting next week. So I'll just leave it at that as a teaser point. All right, so Beverly is, and also, sorry, aside from that, with that in mind, also not a lot of new stuff that's been going on this week, mostly debugging issues, some of which I think some of the people on the webinar brought up. So there's been a new version of vuplayer released earlier today, as is every Tuesday. So keep an eye out on for those fixes and on those support tickets. All right, cool. With that in mind, I can start getting to questions. So Beverly is asking, where can I find vuplayer training? That's a great question in general. So the good place to start with would be, if over here on the top, you can just inside of the application, you can just click on documentation and support, and there's a lot of different ways to go from there. So depending on what you're kind of interested about, you can kind of browse the documentation. So that will be maybe the first place where I would look at. you can just click on search documentation. That's going to bring you to the full documentation listing, which is available at docs.vuplayer.com. Either way, and there you can go sort of through FAQs, the getting started tutorials, how you can create videos. You can also look at some use case examples, so what you're able to build with vuplayer. So if you come to use case examples, and then you can sort of see, all right, how can I build a video funnel, and then you can see that funnel in practice, how it works. So this documentation site is a really good reference point for both getting started as well as sort of covering some advanced use cases. Altogether a good place to browse, so that you're able to get an overall understanding for everything that vuplayer offers. Also available therein are video tutorials. So those are available on our YouTube channel. So you can either, I think you can just access the playlist directly from here, if I'm not mistaken. So, so this is the playlist of basic vuplayer tutorials, which, why am I in this weird view? Can I go back to, yeah, there we go. There you can go through all of the different vuplayer basic module tutorials and how you can get to know vuplayer a little bit better. So that's one place where you can also kind of learn about vuplayer. Also, you can just browse the channel because there's a lot of stuff that's not in those basic tutorials. And also, as I mentioned, you can go through the previous webinar replays to sort of get to know everything that we've been talking about and everything that's planned and upcoming. So that's also a good reference point. Additionally, these webinars are really a resource which is intended for sort of extended learning and training sessions. So if at any point, regardless of documentation, you're left confused with how you can accomplish something and how you can utilize vuplayer in your business, this webinar is a good point to bring that up, and then we can, if need be, escalate conversations from there onwards via our support channels. So that's some resources that are available to you, and also the support and I'm going to rephrase that, because I don't necessarily think you should just contact support if you have a support issue. This should be more of a let's get a conversation going type of a thing. So not necessarily, hey, I just want to report an issue, but also, hey, I just want to talk about how I can use vuplayer. So feel free to treat the support channel itself also as a learning opportunity. So at any time that you have a question or something that you want to talk about or something that you're not fully understanding, please don't be hesitant to just get a conversation going with support. And I think that's the most direct way in which you can get an answer to anything that you want to learn about vuplayer. So hopefully that's some of the resources which are available, but I think enough to get started with. All right, Lewis is saying, last week you showed us the new GDPR feature added to the email opt-in box. Will that be added to the overlays where personal data is also being asked for? Excellent question, as always, Lewis, and the answer to that is yes. We saw the, so what Lewis is referring to, just for context to everybody on the call, I'll just bring it up. Ooh, that's ugly. So in the email capture gate, we have recently added the ability for you to ask for consent from your users, sort of in a two-step process. And there's a neat video of that over here on the YouTube channel while we're here, so I can just pull it up. So here, when somebody enters in their email, then as a second step, you can specify the content for the consent, as well as the terms and conditions label and link, requiring them to consent to the above before unlocking the video. So this is in line with GDPR rules, the General Data Protection and privacy rules, which are enforced for everybody who are doing business in EU or have customers in the EU. So that's something that's important. So the first place and the most prominent place where we saw the major need for this is in the opt-in lock itself. However, as Lewis points out, there are other places in the application where we're asking for, well, where you were asking for viewers for their email, such as, for example, if I want to create an overlay which has an opt-in box in it. So, for example, if I just want to create one really quickly, and then I ask for their email address up here. There's currently not a way for you to ask for their consent at this point, and that's something that we're still kind of lacking on, and that's sort of the secondary prioritization of this, which we see definitely being implemented. It's just that the email lock sort of being the main collector in the application for those personal information data points, that's where we kind of prioritize that. But in answer to your question, Louis, yes, the consent will be added not only to the overlays, but also to the funnel lead capture forms, to the video contest forms, etc. So there's a lot of places in the application where you're able to sort of capture user data, and we're gradually escalating this onwards to those features as well. Thanks for the great question. CB saying thanks for the playlist fix. It's working fine now. Very glad to see it working. Kali saying submit an idea for a ticker text type overlay. Was wondering where it might be in the queue for a new overlay. So that's a good question. So as I mentioned, once we kind of release the new overlays categories, we are still looking for great ideas on how we can add more value by these overlay template types. So as with regards to where it might be in the queue, unfortunately, we didn't get that many ideas. Or rather, I should say, we didn't get that many great ideas. I remember the ticker text type one, and that was one of the few ones which is good. So we're kind of waiting for at least a few of them, a few of the good ones to show up, at least 4 or 5, so that we can sort of make a big general effort around, hey, let's create new overlays, new overlay templates this week, and then we can kind of push it through. Yeah, sorry about that not getting more priority just yet. It's just that we haven't had enough feedback on generally new templates. Not meaning that yours wasn't worth it on its own, but until we sort of gather enough template ideas, we don't necessarily see working on one-off templates as being all that productive. So once we start getting more ideas, all of them will sort of be rolled out at once. Kyle. Ronaldo is asking, can you create a video tutorial on how to connect my domain inside Cloudflare? I tried, but didn't work with the written tutorial. That should be pretty straightforward. So if you've managed to, we can definitely create a video tutorial. Let me just make a note of that. So that's definitely something that I think will be useful. So let me just make a quick note. So that's from Ronaldo. Video tutorial for connecting the domain. All right, so that should be pretty straightforward. Let me actually have a Cloudflare account over here. Cloudflare might be, I don't know if my password is going to be saved here. Hopefully it is. Login. This should be, hopefully this is right. Alrighty, so this should be pretty straightforward. So once you've kind of forwarded your domain via DNS to Cloudflare, so now you have it set up in Cloudflare, that should be sort of your starting point with regards to moving onwards with vuplayer. The next step is pretty straightforward. So you will just come over here to the DNS settings for that domain which you imported in Cloudflare, or rather forwarded to Cloudflare. So from the DNS settings, all you would need to do is just forward that domain via its CNAME to app.vuplayer.com, or alternatively, you can also forward any subdomains to app.vuplayer.com. That's as complicated or rather simple as that gets. So you just need to go to DNS in Cloudflare, and from there just forward either the entire domain or a subdomain of that domain to app.vuplayer.com, and from there onwards you can continue creating your site with a custom domain. We'll gladly, as I mentioned, put together a video tutorial sort of from scratch, just to sort of maybe catch some unforeseen steps there. But if you've managed to get it to Cloudflare, from there onwards the steps should be pretty straightforward. So just adding a CNAME, forwarding from the domain to appvuplayer.com, and then just continuing onwards with your, well, I'm on a pro account, so I don't have my site and client section, but from there onwards, just creating a site with a custom domain should be pretty straightforward. If you've finding one of those steps difficult, please just start a conversation with support so that we can help you troubleshoot it. And I think that might be a little bit more direct rather than us sort of recording a tutorial which is not going to maybe cover one of your steps. So just let us know sort of what your setup is, and sort of what you're going through and where you're experiencing issues. All right, Alan is saying, regarding performance optimizations, do previously designed videos have to be re-clicked using the yellow button, then reposted, or are the old videos going to be automatically optimized? I have been testing inside of my Elementor Pro as HTML script, and they seem to be automatically optimized. What's the yellow button? That's what's confusing me here. The yellow button. Alan, you can. Oh, I see. I got you. So from the dashboard, you're referring to this yellow button, probably the publish options, or when you're generating the embed code. So it depends on when you embedded them. So don't hold me to this, but I think last week we've turned on the beta optimizations on for everybody by default, because we feel that we've gathered enough feedback for us to start sort of rolling this out to everybody. So previously the method was this was off by default and you needed to turn it on. And as you'll see, as I turn it on and off, or rather off and on, that's changing the embed code itself. So you can see some changes happening there in the embed code. So with this option turned on, you should have the optimizations in place. So if when you were originally generating this embed code, that was on, then you don't need to make any additional changes. However, if you had these options as off, then the player itself was not loaded through those beta optimizations. And I'll show you how you can kind of check out the difference. So this might be a good worthwhile mwenterprises.com/test. Let me just get a test environment up and running so that we can see. I just want to show everybody what the difference is between the beta. Let me just take a look at this just to see if this is the beta or not. So this is, and let me actually do it with a new video. So I'll take this camera lens video, and I'll do one version with the beta optimized code. So this is going to be our beta, and I'll open it up. So I want to show you what the difference is between the beta and non-beta. And I'll turn this off, and I'll just create a new post really quickly. And this is going to be the non-beta. This is going to be regular regular non-beta code, non-optimized code. Wherever I say beta, that's referring to the well, the first thing where first place in which you can see the difference is immediately in the code here. So if you have this source attribute filled up with the code, then you know you're not using beta. Whereas the other one, this one, as you'll see, is, so if I come over here to edit the post, let me just get these side by side. So this is the beta, this is the non-beta. The first thing that you'll notice is that the non-beta is loading by default. So when you sort of refresh the page, you have this loading circle, which with the beta or the beta, the performance optimized code, you'll see is never the case. So you're never going to get that loading. So as soon as the page loads, you immediately have the player ready. And I mean, those are the optimizations. So if you have the loading circle at the beginning, you're not using the beta, and you'll need to replace your source codes to use it. So that's just the loading circle at the beginning is an indication that you're not using the optimizations. That's the first point in which you'll notice the difference. And the second point is when you click play, if you have these loading bars, these up and down jumping bars, you'll notice that's an indication that you are using the beta code. So hopefully that's going to help you sort of decipher if you are or not needing to replace your embed codes to leverage the beta optimizations. Dave is saying, got to compliment you on your support. Superb. Really pleased to be able to help, Dave. I'm a reseller, and I noticed that, oh, FYI, the new version of vuplayer, no, never mind. That's in relation to something else. Sorry. I'm a reseller, and I noticed that inside my client account, the white label domain isn't available. Is it something you add to future updates? I noticed that inside my client account, the white label domain, it isn't available. Is it something you add to future updates? Not necessarily sure what you mean by the white label domain not available in the client account. How is it not available? Is it not available in the published code, or is it not being used where you feel it should be used? So as some of the people here on the webinar will tell you, so if you are logged in as the client account, you should be seeing that you should log in through your custom white label domain. If you've created it thus far, you've indicated that you had some difficulties creating a custom domain. But if you have integrated it, the client should only be seeing that domain and no vuplayer references in it. Alan is saying, check out Adam Frazier. He'll show you step-by-step Cloudflare inside of your website. Excellent. Thank you for helping out there, Alan. Phoebe is saying, is it possible to integrate with Google Cloud Storage via Zapier with vuplayer API in the meantime? So this was in reference to supporting Google Cloud Storage as a hosting provider, something that thus far only a couple of people have requested. Would it be possible to do that via Zapier? No, it wouldn't. So there's no API connection currently, which would API endpoint, which would allow you to specify the hosting mechanism. So that's just something that, as I mentioned, we'll need to continue. I also saw that article you forwarded with regards to the Google Videos machine learning capabilities for scanning the video for objects and topics and tagging it. And I thought that was really interesting. So Google Cloud Storage is definitely one of the things that we are continuing to look at. Thus far, I don't necessarily see a straightforward integration point. So appreciate your patience as we continue to investigate that. Ronaldo is asking, can you show us how the capture data with the email form works from one video to the other? In other words, I don't want my student having to add their email on all the video courses. I need proof that the students are watching the video, and the data collections is the only way I have to verify it. So that's one of the common misconceptions, Ronaldo. So I'm assuming that if you have a student watching a video, you're able to identify that student within your learning platform or your membership site or whatever have you. So there's no way for you, there's no need rather for you to even ask for that email even once. What you need to do instead is, so let me just pull this up as well. So vuplayer.com/docs/API. So inside of the API, you have the ability to set a custom viewer ID, and that's a really powerful thing for everybody who is showing their videos to already locked in membership audience, such as students taking courses or I don't know, people on a membership site who are logged in, etc. So with this little snippet of a code, excuse me, you're able to specify a custom viewer ID, which will, so for example, if this is student 123, you're going to be able to associate all of the views from that person directly inside of your vuplayer analytics. So inside of vuplayer analytics, if I come back over here, so let me just take, for example, a single video, but you can do the same for the segments. You can filter views either by email or by custom ID. So the custom ID, which you've currently I don't have one for this video, but you can set a custom ID for viewers, and then you can search their engagement with videos via that custom ID. So you can only come back to the application and give me student 123, and that's going to give you all of the associated data with that. If you require any assistance with sort of helping this, setting this up, some of our development people will be more than glad to sort of guide you through this and how we can help you with this. So just sort of forward us access to your membership platform and how we can sort of troubleshoot from here, or you can have one of your developers take a look at that, and it should be pretty straightforward. So all you basically need is this member ID to be able to be forwarded onwards, and from there on you're just going to use that ID always for that viewer, and that's sort of the right way to associate views with with a particular user. All right, so Lewis is asking, is there a glitch with using Facebook videos? The video validates and begins to play. I name it, but when I try to save it, the system gets stuck. We weren't aware of that. Let me make a note of that, and let me just forward it directly to the bug reporting and investigation. So Lewis is saying that there might be a glitch with Facebook when you're creating videos. All right, we'll investigate that, and I'm not sure that I don't have the answer at this time, but we'll take a look at that. Ronaldo is also asking if the client wants to use one of his videos on the website and the domain is not white labeled, his or her video does not play inside of the website. If the client wants to use one of his videos on their website and the domain is not white labeled, his or her video does not play inside of the website. Well, that bears to reason if the domain is not white labeled. And I think that's kind of helping clarify the issue which you raised previously. White labeled, non-white labeled domains will not play on their websites. That's the purpose of that function. And the client does not have the option to white label their websites, so the video could play inside their sites. That's a good point. And I believe for sub accounts, and I will double check that, but for sub accounts, I believe that the option to even start white labeling something is disabled, meaning that their videos will play on all sites. So for sub accounts, I think you can't white label websites at all, meaning that they're able to be played on all sites. If there's another issue for sort of why this wouldn't work, just feel free to open up a support issue, and then we can sort of troubleshoot it from there. Where do you add the HTML code, after or before? I have to do it manually on my account. What HTML code? If you're referring to I reported to the Facebook this a while ago. I'll take a look at it, but if you reported anything to Facebook, that's not up. And I think at the top of the Facebook group, you'll see that that's not a place for a troubleshooting discussion. So either from the application, as I mentioned, you can either just, I believe you're on an enterprise account, so down here you're going to have an option to start a live conversation, or you can always initiate a detailed issue with all of the details if you just go through the the context support option. Sorry. So from there you can raise issues where the support team is not monitoring the Facebook group for issues. So I don't know what the reference is to the HTML code, but I'm assuming that's something to do with Cloudflare. So I won't be able to help you with that. And really, this webinar also, we're glad to kind of troubleshoot some issues and sort of help clarify what they are. But really, going through the support channel on sort of debugging and troubleshooting some things is the best approach here. In final answer to your question, I believe that sub accounts are not able to whitelist any domains, meaning that they have all domains whitelisted, meaning that there are no white labeling restrictions to them. If you feel that's not the case, or something is not working related to that, support at vuplayer.com. Looking forward to kind of troubleshooting that. All right, we kind of ran out of time today. I want to thank everybody, especially the new folks who joined this week, and thank you for all the great questions, also for pointing out some potential issues which we can improve, also for reminding us about some things which we said that we're gonna do but we didn't do, that really helps us drive the priority onwards as we move forward into the next week, when we hope that we'll see you and we'll continue this discussion. As I said, pretty big week ahead of us. Sorry, not this week. Next week is going to be pretty big for vuplayer. So hopefully you'll tune in for some big announcements next week. Thanks. Bye.